Hey, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to PRI, the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show. We got a great webinar for you today. We're going to be talking about coalitions and how PRI is fighting to help the racing industry. I'm Dr. Jamie Meyer. I'm your president of PRI, and away we go. As you know, the COVID pandemic has impacted racing across the country, and PRI has enlisted the help of our lobbyists and industry experts to help you. So today's webinar, we're going to be talking about coalition building. What is a coalition and how PRI has helped different tracks in different states get back up and running. So looking forward to talking to our experts today. Oh, a reminder, folks, this is a GoToMeeting application. If you've got questions throughout this webinar, write them over there in the right side of your screen. Go ahead and type your question and our folks will get back to you. We welcome your questions. PRI is here to help. Again, it's a pre-recorded session, but type in your questions and we will get back to you. All right, thanks. All right, so to get going on our coalition conversation, let's bring in a couple of the PRI experts. Our government affairs director, Mr. Christian Robinson, is going to be joining us. There he is. Hey, Christian, good afternoon.
Hey Jamie, how are you?
Good. And I think we're going to bring in Tom Deary at this point too. Tom Deary is one of our 3 ambassadors from the World of Outlaws. He's been traveling the country and meeting with track owners daily. Tom, good to see you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, guys.
All right, gang. Well, let's get at it. Coalition building. I never thought I'd be part of building coalitions when I joined PRI, but here we are, guys, trying to help this industry in any way we can. Christian, this is really your specialty and techniques that we've developed through several decades of advocacy for the aftermarket industry. Do you want to take the folks through this rather and talk about what a coalition is first, and then how we've used this technique to help our racetrack partners out there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here with everyone today. We talk about coalitions, and when we get into industry coalitions, I think there's a misperception that it requires a lot of organization and legal wrangling and lawyers and to get everyone on the same page and up and running. Money, yeah, money out of everyone's pockets, a contribution just to join. But coalitions are really simple. It is a group of like-minded individuals coming together, speaking in a common voice on a common issue. And you see them a lot in politics. And we like to say, you've heard me say this, and I think in every single one, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And coalitions are a way for racetracks to come together. It doesn't matter if you're a drag strip or a circle track, to speak in a collective voice with your government in your state. There's power in numbers. It's informal. You don't have to have the lawyers and the money like we discussed. It's really just a simple way for you to join forces as a community and show your strength, and, as I like to say, sing off of the same sheet of music. And claim the industry's seat at the table. And there's always a need for racing to have a seat at the table, but in 2020, more so now than ever before. And we have been putting together tools for racetracks throughout the COVID-19 pandemic to help them get back on track and bringing cash in instead of cash out. And we've got a new tool up, which is a coalition toolkit that takes some of the best practices that we've seen as we've helped organize in the various states and make it just as simple as possible for you and your track or a group of tracks in your state to get organized. A lot of the work that has been gone into putting together the plans that we've created in states like New York and New Mexico and Illinois that we'll discuss today has been done by one of the PRI ambassadors here that you introduced, Tom Deary. And I'll let Tom get into some of the nitty-gritty here in a second. But we'll be publishing the template toolkit on the performance racing website, performanceracing.com, for anyone that wants to download it. So Tom.
Christian, let me ask you, I mean, I think it sounds simple. If you're watching this webinar right now and you're a track operator, geez, that sounds simple. It's just, let's get together and let's make sure our voice is heard. Is it really that simple, guys? Does it really change the course of this if we can just voice our opinion to the right politician?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, it's as simple as organizing a conference call and having an agenda of knowing what you want to talk about and creating a plan and then getting it into the right people's hands. It's not as complicated as it sounds. You know, we're here to help, which is even part of the better part if
Right.
you're nervous about it too.
Well, Tom, it looks like you're building coalition there right now as we're doing this webinar. Do you want
Absolutely, yeah. The family is
you wanna
always
jump in
coalition.
Hey,
Yes,
that's okay.
family is always coalition. You know that, putting like-minded people together. That's Christian, and thanks for that introduction. That's a great explanation of what we've been able to do. But it's more importantly that people who are maybe watching this that don't have that group in your track, that's something that we're reaching out and saying, if you need us to help, or we're here to help, put that together in your state or in your group. You can, as we go through this, you'll see where we've been successful in putting a coalition together in multiple states. Here's an opportunity. If you want to use the toolkit among yourselves or ask us to help, we're certainly here to add whatever we can and to certainly give that help. And as we mentioned, there's no entry fee, there's no cost. All it is having a like-minded group of people with an intent to do something and a single focus on what we're doing. And COVID has done that. And what you'll find in the toolkit are a couple things. And the first listed there is the impact statement. And as an industry, motorsports, whether it's drag strips, oval tracks, golf carts, go-karts, motorcycles, whatever it might be, we've always had, being an independent businessman all the way across the state, seldom are we ever together as a group to put together the import of that impact that we have on the economy or the entertainment within a state. So it's been very important to us to be able to finalize, put some of those pieces together, come up with what we think the impact will be. COVID has given us some steps to where people might be leaving one state to go race in another. That's the kind of impact that makes an impact. The fact that just the number of people that aren't participating, consuming parts rather, or the consumables, fuel, tires, whatever it might be. All of that is an impact. And when you put it together, when you aggregate it all into one spot, it becomes a pretty significant number. And that's where we can help you put that together. We don't have impact or necessarily market studies, but we know enough of what it means as far as an impact within a certain community. And the other piece of putting together a strong document is to know what you're asking for. It doesn't do any good to just raise a complaint or wish something or expect something to happen. Know what you want, lay that out, be very specific about it so that you have at least a roadmap that your group as well as whomever you're presenting it to will have in front of them to know what to follow or what you're asking for. Once you have that, then you can build the operational steps. And we have volumes of resources on the website of people who've put together very robust, very thorough operational programs and policies that's there for all of us to share.
Good stuff. All right, gang, so that kind of shapes up what's a coalition and then what PRI has available, the work that Christian and Tom's doing. Let's go through the deck and we're going to look at some specific examples. So we're going to look at why coalitions are so important in my home state of New York. So this is a recent one, guys, but take it away. What are we doing in New York?
Yeah, New York, you know, is an interesting case. If you look at the history of COVID, I think everyone at this point knows New York was by far the hardest hit state in the country. Just immeasurable impact in your home state, Jamie. At this point, they're doing much better than they have been. In fact, I would say they might be leading the country in their recovery when you look at the numbers that are coming out in terms of their positivity rates under 1% every day, it seems like. As far as racing goes in their reopening, the state is currently in phase 4 of their reopening plan. They're 4 steps along. Unfortunately, as it stands right now, racetracks have been singled out from other professional sports and said, doesn't matter what phase you're in the state, racetracks have to be closed to spectators. Meaning you can run races, but you can't have anybody in the stands watching. You can't charge people to come and attend. You know, we've seen some of the bigger sanctioning bodies be able to get away with falling back on TV revenue. The TV contracts that they've got with the ESPNs and the Fox Sports of the world, and the NBCs. But when you've got 60 tracks like New York does, over 60, some of them are able to broadcast on the web and charge a pay-per-view fee to watch on YouTube or another streaming service. A lot of these tracks, though, aren't able to fall back on TV revenue. So it really doesn't make sense to open without spectators. What we've seen in New York, some of the tracks had come together and challenged the governor legally. They pursued a lawsuit to question his authority to be able to say, okay, racetracks, you have to remain closed. Part of their argument was it's reducing the value of their property. There was a fairness issue. Okay, you're allowing weddings to happen, but you're not allowing racetracks to open. That doesn't make any sense. And frankly, it doesn't. I mean, racetracks are unique in that they are large, multi-acreage facilities where you can space people out, and above all, it's outdoors, which is what you want to see. But the lawsuit, unfortunately, failed. The court ruled with the governor and said it was within his authority to say that racetracks must remain closed. So now you're kind of left scratching your head saying, okay, what's the next step? This is where a coalition can come in. You can organize every track in the state, 60 plus, as we mentioned. That's a huge economic impact. Put together a reopening plan. We've talked before that the government loves to see industry that's willing to be a partner and self-regulate, that will do so responsibly within the state's larger framework of capacity limits. And we've helped to get it in the right hands and launched a social media campaign and media campaign to try to get it approved. Tom has been instrumental in that. I'll allow him to add a little more color to what we're doing there in New York.
And New York is almost the perfect example of where a coalition, where getting together with your fellow tracks can have a benefit. I wish we could say it's caused a change in the law, or at least of the permissions, but it hasn't yet. I think what it's really laid out is the opportunity for a document for the state to look at, to know what, as an industry, what we're willing to do responsibly to open. And you have to look now, we have to look a little bit forward and say, okay, we're in this situation. What's going to happen when this season passes? How are we going to be prepared for 2021? And one of the things that I think we're all going to have to deal with is now we've introduced multiple governmental agencies or people that are aware of what our business is and how it operates. We need to be ready to make sure we have a plan in place that you can always have to present to your local health department, to the Department of Commerce, whomever it might be, so that as an industry, as a business person, you understand what you're doing, and here is how we are responsibly going to move forward. That's one of the, back to the question, why do we need a coalition? That gives an opportunity for everybody to be working off the same document so that there's at least there's consistency across the venues within that state. We're hoping in New York that we'll at least be able to get the governor's office attention, that as an industry, there's really has not been a single voice. This is where we've put a single voice together. Many other industries have them. Drive-in theaters, bowling alleys, the horse racing, They've all had their voice. Some of them have been successful in advancing a plan and guidelines and at least getting that looked at. That's where we are very pleased about what we've been able to accomplish in New York.
It's good. It's good. Bringing all these tracks together really for the first time, guys. I mean, a great effort, and it's got to help, right? It's just got to help if we're all saying the same thing. So
yeah, what is it? The expression, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, the grease.
yeah.
We're trying to be the squeakiest wheel, and the easiest way to do that is when everyone comes together. There's absolutely strength in numbers, and that's where a coalition can help. Especially in a state that's as diverse as New York.
Good point.
If you're a New York resident, or Jamie, if you've got family back in New York, tell them they can visit the SEMA Action Network website, semasan.com. We've got a great letter writing tool. You just plug in your name and address. It automatically tells you, okay, here's who your local representatives are, and it'll send a letter to them and the governor advocating for our plan. And each letter helps.
That's good.
We look at COVID as being our reason today. And the initiatives that Jamie and PRI have put together in creating the ambassador program and this outreach, there'll be another issue tomorrow or next year or some other time down the line. By us working together and putting these coalitions together, these communication coalitions at minimum, gives us the opportunity to be poised and ready whenever that next issue comes up. And back to what PRI has stepped out and has given the resources to the tracks, both through the ambassador program as being that first line, but also letting us tap into the Washington office, where the resources there are unbelievable. And as an industry, if we don't take advantage of them, shame on us.
It's a really good point, Tom. Thank you. We're going to talk about 3 states today, but hey, your state, your track could have problems. We need to unite racing. We think the right place is to unite racing under PRI so that we can leverage the great minds like Christian Robinson and help fight for our industry. So great. Let's flip the slides, guys. Let's move on and talk about another example where PRI is helping to create dialogue. This time, the state of New Mexico, and Tom, we had a track owner that came to us through our hotline, reached out to one of our PRI advisory committee members and said, hey, I've got a great facility down here, but I'm limited to what I can do with it. Tom, you're going to lead off with New Mexico, and we'll see what we're doing there.
Yeah, New Mexico, we jumped right into that. And actually, one of the most gratifying things about New Mexico is when we brought all the track operators together. Not a lot of tracks in New Mexico, so it's not a big group, but bringing them together after that initial phone call, several of them reached out and said, you know what, I've never spoken to this person or that person. I had no idea that that's what they did there. And just that one conversation with everybody with a common denominator, we're involved in motorsports, bringing them together was kind of a handshake that's now created relationships within the tracks in the state. And that really, if you look back at it, that's one of the things as an industry we should have been doing for years, but we haven't. Now we had the opportunity, we brought the tracks together and have created that dialogue among themselves. The organization it's loose, it's more working together with the guidance of the PRI program as well as the Washington office, but it's at least bringing those track operators together. And when you do that, and Christian, you're going to again reinforce the importance of that speaking with the one voice, or what that means when you can speak as a group rather than one person.
Yeah, there is a collective group or trade association for every industry that you can possibly think of, from auto parts to dentists to farmers, you name it. They've got a group, probably with some sort of acronym like PRI or ADA, you name it. Where we need to follow suit is in motorsports and claim our seat at the table. And what these groups do is they speak in one collective voice. And having a plan that everyone can have in their pocket to take to their local officials or to their state that is unified and shows an industry that's willing to play ball and act responsibly, it is a great calling card to have. And when everyone can speak in the same voice, they can self-police to a certain extent and make sure that everyone is behaving properly. It's really a wonderful tool. Like Tom said, in New Mexico, not a ton of tracks, but when you pool everyone together, it's a pretty decent economic impact in terms of ticket sales, jobs created, and it's spread throughout the state. And that's where, you look at those economic figures. You may not have the economic study, but you do know how many people you employ. It's immensely helpful. And you can pool together everyone's collective Rolodex and say, look, I'm part of this coalition. You may not have a contact in the governor's office, but someone else in the coalition might. And it's really an all for one and one for all strategy. We were able to get our plan to New Mexico's Economic Recovery Council. New Mexico hasn't been as hard hit as other states. They are in a region of the country that this summer has been very hard hit, and their reopening has been very slow going. And we wish we had a better outcome in terms of the reopening so far. But the fact that these tracks are talking, that they're organized, I think in the end they will get a good outcome. And like it was said earlier, you're going to build relationships that will help you in the future. Your contact with your local health department, your local legislator, you have a problem down the road, you can say, oh, well, maybe Bob or Steve at the health department can help me on this one. I can call him as soon as the problem arises. So there's a lot of value in coalition forming, both today and down the road.
One of the things in New Mexico that was very gratifying is when we put everybody together and had the initial campaign, we got pretty good response by people who generated emails and contacts to the legislative or to the administrative part of the government. One track or two tracks could have never done that, but when we put all those, I can't remember the number, I think it's 16 or 17 venues together, it created a pretty significant conversation. And the New Mexico has a very strong SCCA membership. Those people were fabulous. They stepped up, did the emails, as Christian pointed out, you can do so easily on the SEMA SAN website, and had an impact.
And Tom, let me just ask this, but those folks, those track owners had never met before, right? They hadn't been part of any organization like this until you and Christian brought them together, right?
They have maybe met at one of the industry conferences, but as a group of being a common New Mexico group, not at all. This was their introduction. This was their handshake, and really proud of being able to do that.
All right, good job, guys. We'll hope that work continues to pay off for them. And as you've said, just having that voice can make such a difference. So let's keep going and look at our third example where we're talking about leadership. And that's the state of Illinois. And guys, we got rolling real early in Illinois. I think this was my first or second day on the job way back in May. Illinois had started to put together a coalition. I think we were there with them. And this has really set a lot of the groundwork for the industry and for PRI. Christian, do you want to talk about what we did in Illinois? And then Tom, I think you can give some specific examples of how it's impacted the state.
Yeah, for sure. Illinois has been a shining star in terms of what organizing in a coalition can do in terms of getting a good outcome. The slide before this said empowering leadership. Chris Blair, who was on the previous webinar at Worldwide Technology Raceway, was really one of the leading voices in getting the Illinois Motorsports Coalition off the ground, and had Tom there to assist in organizing their effort. They took a look around and saw what other groups were doing in terms of getting a plan to the state and the governor's office and their reopening council. Saw what the drive-in movie theaters were able to do, the golf courses were able to do, and emulated their strategy. They were able to put in place a lobbying campaign in Springfield, Illinois, to get their plan looked at by the consulting firm that was advising the governor's office early. Illinois was one of the hardest hit states. We talk about New York earlier, but Illinois was also one of the harder hit states, and is diverse like New York is. It's a large state with some big metropolitan areas, but a lot of suburban and rural areas as well. And they were very proactive. They organized in an excellent way, put together an amazing plan, and it was a tool that each track had where they could go to their local health department and get approval to reopen under the state's current plan. Singing off the same sheet of music, and they got wonderful feedback on their plan, and it's really, we've used it as the A+ template as we've moved forward to try to help these other states. And I'll let Tom speak to it because he was right there with Chris and the folks in Illinois at the early stages to get them organized and eventually reopened.
Yeah, Illinois is really been a good example of two things. One is when you get the people together, when all of the like-minded people get together and can create a very workable and good plan that can be accepted, a good acceptable plan, and then using their contacts. Bob Sargent had a relationship with the Department of Commerce person. The people in Jacksonville had a connection with the health department, the state health department. All those people working together were able to help us put together the final operational plan, get them to look at it, say, do this, do that, make this change, put it together. And then it became the template for the state government to pass on to the local health departments as saying, here is the template if you have a motorsports facility in your market. Illinois has a high number of motorsports tracks, both drag strips, oval tracks, dirt tracks, go-kart tracks, motocross facilities. So there's a lot of racing that goes on in the state. This past weekend, Chris Blair's Worldwide Technology Raceway had 2 days of IndyCar racing, a Craftsman truck race, or excuse me, a Gander truck race and a Menards ARCA race, all on the same weekend. 25% capacity as he is laid out in the Illinois plan. All of the mask wearing and the temperature screening, it worked, and it worked perfect. It was a great example of when everybody's working together, you can follow the guidelines. They can be done in a good, safe way. The event can be held, and they had a great weekend with actually 3 days of on-the-track activity. So that's on a big screen where you see all across the state. A lot of the weekly tracks have been operating. They're under a capacity limit, self-imposed. This is what the Illinois Motorsports Coalition felt it was going to be safe. They're working within that guidelines, and the tracks have been open since I guess it was June when they had the first number of races. So, and it's been able to continue to grow and be done very smartly, wisely, and getting the nods of the local health departments, which those people have to report up to the chain to the next person to the state. So it's been very, very gratifying. And as Christian mentioned, that plan, which is available on the website in its entirety, is really the one that we've used as the template on all the other states It gives you all the pieces that you need, and either use all of it or part of it as you go forward.
And obviously, gentlemen, you can help guide the track owner through that process, as we've stated before. But really good work in Illinois and working with those folks. Obviously, Chris Blair is way out in front of this and really worked hard to put together the documents and have those relationships. But it shows what a track and a state can do working with PRI, and again, one voice. So great work. Let's go to the next slide, which I think summarizes some of the resources we have available at PRI. We do have that racetrack operator helpline that's manned 24 hours a day, a 50-state database, which is just invaluable for sharing resources and guidelines and tips and documents. It's all there at performanceracing.com. Best practices and guidelines throughout all of that. And you can find it at that website address at performanceracing.com. I imagine folks are going to have a lot of questions. They're welcome to type it in on the side of the tool, and we'll get back to them. So let's wrap it up. I think we got one last slide, and we'll bring it home. Again, PRI's out there working for our track operators every day. Christian Robinson manning things in the Washington, D.C. office. Tom Deary, thank you so much for all the work you're doing out there. A great ambassador to racing. Also want to thank Gene Bergstrom and Frank Hawley, the other two ambassadors who are out there fighting every day for track owners, working with PRI, and Tom and Christian on that larger effort. So guys, I can't thank you enough on behalf of the industry. I know you're out there fighting every day. Track operators, if you're watching this webinar, this has been one in a series, so go back and watch the other ones. There's been good stuff there. If you've got questions, again, type them on the right side of your screen. Someone from PRI will get back to you, or get on the website and call that number, and we'll make sure we get you all the help we can. Unbelievable times, guys. It's just crazy what's going on out there. Some tracks that are having great seasons. There's some tracks that have been completely wiped out. PRI is trying to help each and every one of those tracks. So for Christian Robinson and for Tom Deary, I'm Dr. Jamie Meyer. I want to wish you a great day. Wish you great racing and be safe out there, folks. Thank you very much for watching.